Hey everybody, Jesse Nyberg here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to go over a video on how to get your first design job. So whether you're coming out of college, just starting out, or just looking for something new during the pandemic. So I'm going to go over some of my best practices and things that I learned over the years when I was fresh out of college and looking for jobs online, just grinding it out. And so if this helps you at all, please like and subscribe and check out the stuff in the description. We got the Patreon and the Discord community, all that good stuff. And with that being said, let's get into it. So when you're looking for a design job, one of the first things that you need to do is assess like the goals that you have and figure out what exactly you want to do, what kind of job you're looking to get into. So I like to categorize it into three different categories. You have agency jobs, in-house jobs, and like contract jobs. Obviously you have freelance and stuff like that, but that's like a whole different process and everything. This is more for salary or hourly paid positions. So an agency job, you have that, which is, branding agency, studio, entertainment agency, things like that, where you're working on projects with different clients and your company is outsourcing your design skills and your art direction and your web design, whatever it is, out into the world, and you're creating stuff for other companies. That is probably the most sought after when it comes to like people new out of college. Everyone wants to work at like a cool branding studio, right? But the thing is, those also come with some of the heftiest hours and also like the most competition. So keep that in mind. And then you have in-house jobs, which are, working for a company rather than being the company that outsources and creates stuff for, let's say Pepsi or Snapchat. You work actually there. So you're doing more day-to-day stuff. I think these type of designers have to have a lot more of a general skill set and really strong sense of the software and tools, because you're going to be wearing a lot more hats in day-to-day. For example, I work at a startup currently, and not only do I design, but I handle art direction, photo shoots, stuff for packaging, making phone calls, meetings. It's a lot more all-encompassing, and I think it's rewarding and fun, but it's also has that added stress. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And the last one would be contracts, which is, a company is hiring you as a contract, either as like a freelancer or a short-term contract where you work there for 3 months, 6 months. Those can be good because it can help you get experience and help you figure out what exact niche you want to get into. So once you figured out kind of what kind of job you want to get, you got to really make sure you have a good resume. And the resume is really important because as a designer, not only does the resume have to have good information and good experience and you want to organize it well, it actually has to be designed good because you're a designer. So we're one of the only professions where the actual design and layout of the resume is judged. I want to show you an example of my resume, and here it is. Basically I have everything sorted out into a grid. It's worked pretty well for me, and it's been easy enough to update. This one's a little older because I've had my current job for a while now, so I haven't gotten around to updating it, but it's good to break it down by skills, the position, and keep everything consistent. For example, I use this orange in my contract, my portfolio, and my resume. If you want this resume as a template, I'm going to create an InDesign template and throw it on the Patreon. So check that out in the link in the description if you want to download it. Another important thing to go with your resume is obviously going to be your portfolio. I'll talk about that in a few, but getting a referral if you can. If you're fresh out of college, you can get a referral from an internship, a past professor, something like that. A lot of times they'll ask for that and it can really help. I got a referral personally from my internship coordinator boss at Chico State. So here's what that looks like. It was pretty straightforward. Basically him saying like, I have potential or good work and whatnot. And I think it helped for some stuff. After a while, you want to stop using that obviously, because you kind of want to separate yourself from college work as much as you can eventually, because that's what will separate you and show that you have more experience and whatnot. Let's say you got all this stuff figured out, you got your resume, you're figuring out what kind of jobs you want to do, and you have goals in mind, but where do you find these jobs? Right now, obviously we're in kind of lockdown pandemic. I'm sure it's different depending on where you're at, but regardless of that, I've always thought these job sites work the best, or referrals. If you know a company, check it out. Go on their website, look through their contact page, click on, find out the emails, reach out to them even if they're not hiring. If it's a dream job of yours, you never know, it's worth trying. But for general job searching, if you're a little more unclear and direct on exactly where you want to work, you have things like LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, Glassdoor, all that stuff. I personally like LinkedIn the most. I think it's the strongest. I think it's the most organized, and I think the higher quality jobs post on there. And you don't have all the whatever like bullshit ones that come with Indeed, and it's kind of all over the place. And LinkedIn has a little bit better UI, I've figured. And one thing that comes with the LinkedIn job though, a lot of that stuff's internal. You're applying through there. Yeah, you're attaching resumes. Yeah, you have your portfolio, but you want to make sure your profile's good. You got to have a nice profile picture. You got to have a good description. That's really important. You want people to know what you're about. And one of the most important things is organizing your work, kind of like you would on your resume in a chronological timeline. And one thing I've found that really helps is getting the recommendations and the endorsements on your skills. So you can see I have like skills for endorsed for typography, branding, UI, and then I have some recommendations, from some past clients and also professors. And it's not like super important, but some of that stuff adds a nice little touch and helps you organize the page in a way that's like gonna look more appealing to the jobs you're applying to. So LinkedIn's pretty cool. I mean, you pretty much just go to the jobs page. You got all those jobs you can look at, and they do a really good way of sorting it out. For example, you can apply to this job here. It'll show you the different stuff you want to look at. You look at the description, qualifications, all that. And then you just pretty much can either send it internally or you can apply on their website. Sometimes I'll use these sites like LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster, all that as kind of just the catalog of jobs I'm able to apply to. And then I'll actually go to their site and apply from there. Because sometimes I think it works better to go straight to the source. Once you kind of have the jobs figured out that you want to apply for, like just look at ones that interest you and also look at what they're looking for in qualifications. If you're fresh out of college or just starting out self-taught and looking to get into like a career job or an hourly position, I think that it's a pandemic and it's COVID, so you're gonna have to be persistent, and it's even like that when it's not. Don't get discouraged if you're applying to all these jobs and it gets hard, but just keep on pushing through. And when you're first starting out, you probably want to look for either internship positions if you haven't had one yet, junior designer positions, or graphic design positions that list like 1 to 3 years experience. But also, don't be too scared of the qualifications. Some of this stuff will say, make sure you know this, proficient in this. And if you kind of know those programs, like we'll take a look at one of these job descriptions here. Yeah, even if they want this many years experience or something super specific, sometimes like they're over exaggerating that a little bit, and you can fake it till you make it and just try to apply to that job anyway, test it out. The worst that could happen is you don't get it. With that being said, don't come straight out of college and apply to the 8-year experience art director role. It's not going to be worth your time. They're not even going to get back to you with something like that. And then one thing to be wary of is please stay away from either spec work or unpaid internships. It's 2021. That shit should not be going on no more. There shouldn't be unpaid internships, and there also shouldn't be work that you're doing on spec. If a interviewer is like, do all this work just so we can see like if you're gonna work for the company, it's usually kind of a red flag. A good example of a way a company can do spec work but also benefit the person is I did some work for a potential job employee, which was at this agency round 2 that I worked with for a little bit. They had me do some work up front as kind of spec work. However, they paid me hourly for that work. So even if we didn't end up working with each other after that, I still got paid for my time, and it wasn't just like them using you for free work, basically. Also, if you kind of are confused a little bit about job searching and want to ease the process in and be notified of new opportunities, you can check out there's these things that are like agencies that kind of source jobs for you and will reach out to you and let you know when ones are available. I've never had much success with them, but I know a lot of people have enjoyed them in the past and used them. For me in Los Angeles, we have ones like the Creative Group and Creative Circle. So you'll get emails like saying, for example, visual designer, 2 to 4 years experience, contract in the beauty industry. Make sure you're proficient in Illustrator or something like that, right? And then it'll be kind of vague because they're not giving away who the company is. And if you get the job through them, they pay you through that, and it's like a different process, but it's worth checking out, especially if you're not having luck doing it the traditional way. All right, so the next, probably most important step of this is making sure your portfolio is set up. I'm not going to go too much into my portfolio or things like that, but if you think it could be helpful, let me know in the comments and I'll make a separate video about how I set up my online portfolio and some tips for that. Just roughly, I use Adobe Portfolio. I feel like it's worked well for me and it's free. I'm kind of lazy to switch it over at this point, and I just kind of update that one. So one thing about your portfolio, especially coming out of college, is you not only want to show that you have good work and diversity, but you want to show some of your process. When you're a more experienced designer and later into the field, your portfolio is a little more about the finished product because people can trust your process. They know that you know what you're doing. But when you're starting out, you want to show that you're able to think through things. You want to show your design thinking skills. You want to show some of your sketches, some of your process in these projects. So, something I learned in college, and it really helps, like if something can be made into more of a case study and like you'll show your discovery phase, your research, your final, the problem, how you solved it. That's really good for employers, showing that you're not only good at making pretty pictures, but you're good at solving problems. And you also want to show your best projects, right? If you have 8 projects and only 4 of them are like something really good, just put 4 on the portfolio. It's better to have 4 good ones than 8 mediocre ones, because the chances are the employer is going to click on the one that's not your best when they're looking through it, and that could hinder your ability to get the job. And if you only have some of your best stuff on there, you have less to worry about, you feel more confident in it, and when you go to the interview, you can speak about it more. When you're at the interview, you really need to be able to talk to your work, especially if you put a little less of the process and the descriptions in the project. So you want to be able to explain, your thought process, what you were thinking, how you solved this problem. For example, here I have this Mave project. It's a brand identity that I worked on for a sustainable packaging company that focuses on organic, like toothpaste, face care, things like that. And I had to solve with like a simple logo type. I had to talk about the colors, why I chose these things, how I came up with the word mark, what the name was, the guy Jack that I worked with, what his goals were for the company, how we figured out why it should be called this, what kind of products he kind of wanted to sell, and attach the different names to them. So something like that, you need to be able to speak to how you figured all that stuff out and why it not only looks good, but how you solve the problem for the client. Also, I think, schoolwork is okay. And I think you should have a couple projects in there if that's all you have. But I've noticed in the past, some of the most compliments I've gotten from employers is honestly my section on my portfolio that's called graphic experimentation, which is basically posters, collages, all this stuff that I post on Instagram. So that stuff really doesn't go to waste, It's really good it shows that not only can you initiate your own projects and you can design just out of nothing and more create art, it also shows that you have, the creativity to create things on your own. And it's really helpful because it gives you like your own sense of character. It keeps your portfolio diverse, and it shows that not everything is your school projects. Even if they're not client projects, you self-initiated these things, you saw them out from beginning to end. And I think it's really helpful. And the interviewers and the people who watch, the interviewers and the people, the interviewers will appreciate it, and it'll help separate you from other candidates. Also, if you do self-initiated projects or don't have any other client work, make sure it looks real. Treat all those projects like a real project. If you're doing a branding, break it out, go through all of it. Maybe create some work for your favorite deli or coffee shop or a little store around, create a brand for it that's in your neighborhood, and kind of show how you would redesign it, how you would improve it, and just show some of your process. And lastly, if you do have client work, obviously put that. I'd rather you put your 8 out of 10 client work than your 10 out of 10 just made up self-initiated projects, because client work's the most important because it shows that you can work within restrictions, work on a timeline, work on a budget, all those different things that actually matter in the real world and will affect your performance at the job. I asked on my Instagram if anyone had any questions about applying for a job and landing your first job, and I got this one from justtana.ca that I thought was really helpful, and it says portfolios with consistency or diversity in styles, personal style or corporate/clean. And I kind of spoke to that before, but I think I would go with diversity more, just because, yeah, anyone can make something look clean and nice, but you want to show that you have a good range of work. Unless you're applying to something super specific, you kind of maybe want to cater to that niche, but you want to show that you're a good designer, you're diverse, and you're not only stuck in one lane, and you have personal work, client work, all that stuff. So I think it's helpful to go for diversity over consistency. Consistency, yeah, within a given project or a given kind of theme, but not so much on the entire portfolio. I think if it's all wrapped up nice, you have a nice designed portfolio, it'll look consistent and good either way. So lastly, some of the things that I think you can think about more towards the end of this process is make sure you prepare for the interview. Make sure you're ready to speak on your work. Make sure you're presenting yourself well. And I know it's probably all Zoom right now, I'm sure, and things like that. But, you know, be early, dress nice, even if it's just from the waist up or whatever. Throw on a button-up shirt, throw on whatever you're wearing. Just make it look good, right? And be early and just be respectful. Be a good active listener when they're talking to you. Be ready to explain things. And one thing that has been the most helpful, this one's like, if you take anything away from the interview process or this video, it's this one. Ask questions at the end of the interview. When they say, do you have any questions for us? Don't just say, no, I'm good. Like, it seems all good to me. Ask about the job. Ask, like, why did the last person leave? Maybe ask, what are the goals for the company, and what would you want me to be doing over the next few years? Things like that. Like, ask something that makes it seem that you're actually interested and you want to learn more about the company. That'll go a long way and leave a lasting impression on the employer when you leave. And even if it is Zoom, you know, one thing you can do, make sure you have a nicest camera you have, or nicest webcam, good lighting. That's most of it anyway. And just make sure you're in a quiet place and have good audio and you're not distracted. Show them that you set this time aside for them and got into a nice quiet place and we're ready to be attentive, respectful, and just ready to show your work and hopefully get the position. All right, so I know that's kind of a lot to digest, a little more of a ranting type video, but I do really help. So I know that was a lot to So in closing, obviously doing all these things won't guarantee you a job when you're first starting out or right out of college, but I think it really will improve your chances. Let me know in the comments if you agree with some of these things or other advice that you have for people looking for their first jobs or positions starting out. And, you know, remember to like and subscribe. Check out the Discord community in the description. Check out the Patreon if this helped you. Remember, I'll be throwing the resume template up there as well. And, you know, we got goodies, all that kind of stuff on the Patreon. And I hope this video helped you. Once again, thank you, and I'll see you guys next time.